Have you ever wondered why, even when life seems quiet on the outside, something inside you still feels restless? Why the mind continues searching, questioning, and reaching for a peace that always seems one step away? You may have tried to improve your circumstances, understand your past, please the people around you, or control what comes next. And yet, beneath all that effort, there may still be a soft ache, a feeling that you have somehow become separated from yourself. Perhaps you wake up already carrying the weight of the day. Your mind begins moving before your feet touch the floor. You think about what must be done, what might go wrong, what someone said, or what you should have said in return. You may look at your life and wonder whether you are where you are supposed to be. You may compare your path with someone else's and quietly conclude that you are behind. But what if this restlessness is not proof that something is wrong with you? What if it is a gentle invitation from within, asking you to remember something you have forgotten? There is a part of you that has never been anxious. There is a presence within you that has never been rejected, never been diminished by failure, and never been defined by the opinions of others. It was there before you learned your name, before you collected your fears, and before the world told you who you were supposed to become. You might call this presence the soul. You might call it awareness, spirit, or the divine life within you. The name is less important than the recognition. Beneath the body, beneath the personality, beneath the changing story of your life, there is something quiet and timeless. It does not demand attention. It waits patiently, like the sky behind the clouds. The clouds may change from moment to moment. Some are light and passing, others are dark and heavy, but the sky itself is never wounded by the storm. In the same way, your thoughts, emotions, roles, and circumstances are always changing, yet the awareness that witnesses them remains. You have been a child, and now that child's body is gone. You have held beliefs that once felt certain, and some of them have disappeared. You have known relationships that changed you, seasons that challenged you, and moments that seemed impossible to survive. Yet something within you has observed every change. That silent observer may be closer to your true identity than any description you have ever used about yourself. The difficulty is that the world trains you to identify with what can be measured and seen. You learn to say, I am my body, I am my job, I am my success, I am my mistakes, I am what happened to me. Without realizing it, you begin building a self from temporary things. Then, when those things change, you feel as though you are disappearing with them. A relationship ends, and you wonder who you are without that person. Your body begins to age, and you fear that your value is fading. Someone disapproves of you, and you question your worth. A plan falls apart, and you feel that life has abandoned you. Yet perhaps nothing essential has been lost. Perhaps only an idea of who you thought you had to be is beginning to loosen. This is where the deeper meaning of yoga enters the conversation. Yoga is often associated with the movement of the body, but its spiritual meaning points toward union. It is the remembrance that what appears separate is connected. It is not simply about stretching the body. It is about releasing the mind's belief that you are an isolated being struggling alone against life. The deepest yoga may happen when you pause before reacting in anger. It may happen when you breathe through uncertainty rather than demanding an immediate answer. It may happen when you forgive someone, not because their actions were acceptable, but because you no longer wish to carry the pain inside you. Yoga may be the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and rest in the possibility that your worth was never in question. You do not have to travel anywhere to begin this return. You do not have to become more spiritual, more impressive, or more deserving. The soul is not waiting at the end of a difficult journey. It is the presence within you that has been quietly witnessing the entire journey. Imagine a wave in the ocean believing it is separate from the water. It looks at other waves and compares its height, its shape, and the distance it has traveled. It fears the moment it will reach the shore because it believes that moment will be its end. But the wave has never been separate from the ocean. Its form changes, yet its essence remains. Perhaps you are like that wave. You have been so focused on the shape of your life that you have forgotten the infinite life from which you arise. This does not mean your human experiences are unimportant. Your grief matters. Your fears deserve compassion. Your relationships, choices, and struggles are part of the sacred classroom of being alive. But they are not the whole of who you are. You can care for your life without being imprisoned by it. You can honor your body while remembering that you are more than the body. You can learn from the past without turning the past into your identity. You can move through uncertainty while trusting that something deeper than your thinking mind is present within you. And perhaps the peace you have been seeking is not something you must create. Perhaps it is what remains when you stop fighting yourself. For a moment, simply notice that you are here. Notice the breath entering and leaving your body. Notice the thoughts passing through your mind. You do not need to stop them. Just recognize that if you can observe a thought, then you are not only the thought. There is a space within you that can watch fear without becoming fear. There is an awareness that can notice sadness without being destroyed by sadness. There is a love that can remain present even when the heart has been disappointed. This is the beginning of remembering. And as you continue inward, a deeper question may begin to emerge. If your true self is already whole, peaceful, and connected to the infinite source, then what has been keeping you from experiencing it? What keeps you from experiencing your true self is not a lack of spiritual worth. It is not because peace has rejected you or because the source has moved away. More often, it is because the noise of the ego has become so familiar that you mistake it for your own voice. The ego is not something you need to hate. It is simply the part of the mind that tries to protect you by creating a separate identity. It gathers names, roles, memories, fears, achievements, wounds, and opinions, then places them together and says, this is who you are. It wants certainty. It wants approval. It wants to know that tomorrow will unfold according to its plans. And because life rarely offers that kind of certainty, the ego remains restless. You may notice this when you are waiting for a message from someone you care about. The silence begins to feel personal. Within minutes, the mind creates a story. Perhaps they are upset. Perhaps you said something wrong. Perhaps they no longer value you. Nothing has actually happened, yet your body responds as if rejection has already arrived. The emotional struggle is real, but the suffering is often intensified by the story placed around the silence. Awareness gives you another possibility. You can notice the story without immediately believing it. You can gently say, my mind is trying to protect me from uncertainty. That simple recognition creates space. The silence is still there, but you are no longer trapped inside the meaning the ego assigned to it. In that space, you may discover that peace does not require an immediate answer. It asks only that you remain present with yourself. The ego often believes that control will create safety. It tells you that if you plan carefully enough, please everyone, avoid mistakes, and anticipate every possible problem, then life will not hurt you. So you rehearse conversations before they happen. You replay conversations after they end. You imagine the future and try to solve difficulties that have not yet appeared. This can leave you emotionally exhausted because the mind is attempting to manage an infinite life with a limited perspective. Consider how a river moves. It does not know every stone it will meet before it begins flowing. It responds to the landscape as it arrives. It bends without losing its direction. It moves around what it cannot move through. Its strength is not found in controlling the entire journey, but in remaining faithful to its nature. You may find the same wisdom within yourself. Trust does not mean believing that everything will happen exactly as you prefer. It means believing that you can remain connected to your deeper self even when life changes direction. The ego says, I will be peaceful when I know what happens next. The soul seems to whisper, you can be peaceful while not knowing. Attachment is another way the ego tries to create security. You may become attached to a person, an outcome, an identity, or a particular vision of how life should unfold. The attachment itself is not always obvious. It may appear as love, responsibility, or determination, but beneath it, there is often a quiet demand. This must remain the way I want it, or I will not be okay. You may love someone deeply and still become attached to how they respond to you. You may want their reassurance, their agreement, or their constant presence. When they behave differently, fear appears. You may try to control them, convince them, or make yourself smaller so they will not leave. The emotional struggle comes from confusing love with possession. Love allows another person to be who they are. Attachment asks them to protect you from your own fear. Love offers presence. Attachment demands, guarantees. Love is spacious. Attachment tightens around what it fears losing. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you begin to notice when your peace depends entirely on another person's behavior. That awareness can be uncomfortable, but it is also freeing. It invites you to return to the place within that no one else can complete and no one else can take away. The soul does not ask you to love less. It invites you to love without abandoning yourself. Comparison is another habit of the separate self. You see someone moving forward while you feel stuck. You see their relationship, their confidence, their appearance, or their apparent peace, and the ego immediately begins measuring. It tells you that their progress reveals your failure. But comparison rarely sees the whole picture. It compares your private fears with someone else's visible moments. It compares your current season with a season they may have spent years entering. It reduces two sacred and unique lives to a false competition. A tree does not look across the garden and resent another tree for blooming first. Each responds to its own soil, its own season, its own rhythm of light and rain. The late blooming tree is not failing. It is living according to a timing that cannot be hurried without causing harm. You too may be in a season that does not look impressive from the outside. You may be healing, releasing, grieving, or learning how to rest. The ego may call this delay. The soul may recognize it as preparation. When you stop comparing, you begin to hear the quieter rhythm of your own life. People-pleasing often grows from the same fear of separation. You want to be accepted, so you learn to adjust yourself. You say yes when your heart is saying no. You remain silent when something matters. You carry other people's emotions as if they are your responsibility. Perhaps this began long ago. You may have learned that peace in the room depended on your behavior. You may have discovered that being agreeable kept you safe. Over time, you became skilled at sensing what others wanted while losing contact with what was true for you. There is nothing shameful about this. It was a form of protection, but what once protected you may now be separating you from yourself. Awareness lets you pause before giving the automatic answer. You can ask, am I responding from love or from fear of disapproval? Sometimes love will still say yes, sometimes love will say no. The difference is that the answer comes from inner honesty rather than fear. A sincere no can be more loving than a resentful yes. The ego may warn that boundaries will make people leave, yet the relationships that require you to betray yourself are already asking too high a price. When you honor your inner truth with kindness, you create the possibility for relationships based on authenticity rather than performance. This is a form of yoga too. It is the union between what you feel within and how you live in the world. Fear also becomes powerful when you mistake it for prophecy. A fearful thought enters the mind, and because it carries strong emotion, you assume it must be true. You imagine illness, abandonment, failure, or loss. The body tightens, the heart races, and the imagined future begins to feel real. But fear is often not a message about what will happen. It is a memory of what has happened, or an attempt to avoid what might happen. It is the mind trying to protect you through anticipation. You do not have to argue with fear. You can sit beside it as you would sit beside a frightened child. You can listen without allowing it to lead. You might say inwardly, I see that you are afraid. You are trying to keep me safe. But in this moment, I am here. This gentle awareness changes your relationship with fear. You are no longer fighting it, and you are no longer obeying it. You are becoming the compassionate witness. The more you witness the movements of the ego, the less power they have to define you. This does not happen through force. It happens through recognition. When anger arises, you can notice it before turning it into words that wound. When jealousy appears, you can explore the insecurity beneath it. When the need to be right becomes strong, you can ask whether being right is worth losing your peace. Each moment of awareness is a small opening through which the light of the soul enters your daily life. You may begin to see that the ego is always trying to divide reality. It labels experiences as good or bad, people as for you or against you, moments as successful or wasted. The soul seems to hold life more gently. It recognizes that what feels painful may still carry wisdom, and what feels like an ending may create space for a more honest beginning. Think of a seed beneath the soil. From the outside, it appears buried in darkness. The shell that once protected it begins to break. If the seed could interpret this moment through fear, it might believe it was being destroyed. Yet the breaking is part of its transformation. There may be parts of your life that feel as though they are falling apart. An old identity may no longer fit. A relationship may be changing. A dream may have ended. You may not yet see what is growing. The ego calls this loss of control. The soul may experience it as the release of a form that has completed its purpose. This does not remove grief. Spiritual awareness is not a way to avoid human emotion. You are allowed to feel sadness, disappointment, and uncertainty. The invitation is simply not to build your permanent identity from a passing season. You can say, "This hurts," without saying, "This pain is who I am." You can say, "I do not know what comes next," without saying, "I am lost." You can say, "Something has ended," while remaining open to the possibility that life is still moving through you. The ego fears emptiness because it cannot define what is not filled. But emptiness can be sacred. Silence can be a doorway. The pause between one season and another can become the space where you finally hear what has been hidden beneath constant effort. Perhaps this is why stillness can feel uncomfortable at first. When the distractions fade, you begin to hear the fears, resentments, and unmet needs that activity helped you avoid. Yet if you remain gentle and patient, something deeper also becomes audible. Beneath the anxious voice, there is awareness. Beneath the need to control, there is trust. Beneath the longing for approval, there is a self that already knows its worth. Beneath the fear of separation, there is the quiet recognition that you have never been separate from the source. The path beyond the ego is not the destruction of your personality. You do not become distant, passive, or without desire. You simply stop asking the temporary self to carry the weight of your eternal identity. You still make plans, but you hold them lightly. You still love people, but you do not make them responsible for your wholeness. You still experience fear, but you remember that fear is a visitor, not your home. And with every moment of awareness, you begin to sense that freedom is not found in arranging life so nothing disturbs you. It is found in discovering the presence within that can remain whole, even when life is uncertain. From that presence, another journey becomes possible. It is the journey of forgiveness, surrender, intention, and trust, the gentle return to the self you were before fear taught you to become someone else. Returning to your true self does not require you to escape your life. It begins in the middle of the life you already have. It begins in the conversation that still hurts when you remember it, in the uncertainty you have been trying to solve, in the relationship where you have forgotten your own voice, and in the quiet moments when you finally stop running from what you feel. The return is gentle because the soul does not force. It does not shame you for how long you have been afraid. It does not accuse you for the years you spent seeking love in places that could not give it. It simply waits beneath the noise, ready to be remembered. One of the deepest ways you return is through forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as approval. You may believe that forgiving someone means saying their behavior was acceptable or pretending the wound did not matter. But true forgiveness does not erase your experience. It changes your relationship with the experience. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Maybe they left when you needed them, spoke words that still echo in your mind, or failed to become the person you hoped they would be. The pain may have become part of your identity. You may carry it into new relationships, expecting the past to repeat itself. The ego believes resentment will protect you. It says, if I keep remembering what happened, I will never be hurt that way again. But resentment does not keep the wound in the past. It keeps the wound alive in the present. Forgiveness can begin with a quieter question. Instead of asking whether the other person deserves release, you might ask whether you deserve freedom. You do not have to force compassion before you are ready. You can begin by acknowledging the truth. This hurt me. I wish it had been different. I no longer want this pain to direct my life. There is peace in that honesty. Imagine holding a burning coal because you are waiting for someone else to feel the heat. The longer you hold it, the more deeply it burns your own hand. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the coal. It is the moment you decide to put it down. Sometimes the person you need to forgive is yourself. You may look back at choices you made when you were lonely, afraid, or unaware. You may judge your younger self with the wisdom you only gained later. You ask, how could I have allowed that? Why did I stay? Why did I leave? Why did I not know better? But perhaps you did not know better then. Perhaps you were doing the best you could with the level of awareness available to you. Self-forgiveness is not the denial of responsibility. It is the willingness to learn without continuing to punish yourself. A garden does not condemn a seed for not becoming a flower sooner. Growth follows its own rhythm. What matters is that the seed is now moving toward the light. You can look at your past and say, I understand more now. You can make amends where possible. You can choose differently. Then you can stop using yesterday as evidence against your worth. The soul does not keep a record of your mistakes in order to prove that you are broken. It transforms experience into wisdom. As forgiveness softens the past, surrender softens the future. Surrender may sound like giving up, but spiritually it can mean releasing the struggle against what is already here. It is not passivity. It is not refusing to act. It is acting without demanding that life obey your personal schedule. You may be waiting for an answer, a healing, a relationship, or a clear direction. You have thought through every possibility. You have searched for signs. You have tried to predict what will happen next. Yet, the more tightly you hold the question, the more anxious you become. There comes a moment when the mind has done what it can. Beyond that point, more thinking does not create more clarity. It only creates more noise. Surrender may be the simple willingness to say, I do not know yet, and I do not have to force an answer today. There is great strength in that sentence. A river does not surrender by becoming motionless. It surrenders by flowing with the landscape while continuing toward the sea. In the same way, you can keep taking the next honest step without knowing the entire path. You can make the phone call, have the necessary conversation, care for your body, complete what is yours to complete, and then release what is not yours to control. The ego wants a map of the whole journey. The soul often offers only enough light for the next step. When you begin to live this way, intention becomes more important than control. Control asks, how can I make this happen exactly as I want? Intention asks, what quality do I wish to bring into this moment? You may not be able to control whether someone understands you, but you can intend to speak with honesty and kindness. You may not be able to control the outcome of a difficult season, but you can intend to move through it without abandoning yourself. You may not be able to control how long healing takes, but you can intend to meet yourself with patience each day. Intention aligns your inner life with the source. It shifts your attention from forcing circumstances to choosing consciousness. Before entering a difficult conversation, you might pause and ask, do I want to prove that I am right, or do I want to remain connected to peace? Before making a decision, you might ask, is this choice coming from fear or from love? The answer may not always be immediate, yet the question itself brings you closer to awareness. Love does not always lead to the easiest choice. Sometimes love asks you to stay and listen. Sometimes it asks you to leave what continues to harm you. Sometimes it asks you to speak. Sometimes it asks you to become silent. Love is not weakness. It is the absence of the need to wound in order to protect your identity. When you live from love, you begin to see people differently. You recognize that much of what others do comes from their own fear, pain, and unconscious patterns. This does not mean you excuse harmful behavior. It means you stop allowing their unawareness to turn you away from your own deeper nature. A person may bring anger into your presence. The ego wants to return the same energy. It believes that matching their hostility will protect your dignity. But awareness gives you a choice. You can respond firmly without hatred. You can protect yourself without losing yourself. You can leave the conversation without carrying the poison with you. This is inner strength. It is the ability to remain connected to your values when someone else has lost connection with theirs. Love also changes the way you experience loss. When someone leaves your life, whether through separation, distance, or death, the form of the relationship changes. The ego may say that because the form is gone, love is gone too. Yet love is not limited to form. You may still feel the presence of someone in the kindness they taught you, the memories that softened you, or the way their life opened your heart. Grief remains human and sacred. But within grief, there can also be gratitude. The ocean does not cease to exist when a wave disappears from view. The wave returns to what it always was. Perhaps this is also true of the soul. The body has a season, but the life that animates it may belong to something infinite. When you hold this possibility gently, aging and loss can be seen through a wider lens. You may notice your body changing and feel fear. The face in the mirror may no longer match the image you carry in your mind. Energy changes, time becomes more visible. The ego interprets this as decline because it identifies life with form. But the soul may experience aging as a deepening. The outer self changes, while the opportunity to become more loving, forgiving, present, and awake remains. A tree in winter is not less alive because it has released its leaves. It is gathering its life inward. You are not losing your true self as you age. You may be given the opportunity to release what was never truly you. The roles become less convincing. The need to impress begins to soften. You may become less willing to spend your remaining time in conflict, performance, or resentment. What matters becomes simpler. Presence matters. Love matters. Peace matters. Trust grows when you begin to see that life has carried you through every season you once believed you would not survive. Think of the moments when you were certain everything was falling apart. Some of those moments did change your life. Some left scars, yet you are still here. Something within you continued breathing, learning, and reaching toward light. Trust does not mean believing that nothing painful will happen. It means recognizing that pain cannot separate you from the source unless you allow fear to convince you that you are alone. The source may not always appear as a dramatic sign. It may appear as the strength to get out of bed after a loss. It may appear as the right words arriving in a conversation, a stranger's kindness, a moment of silence, or the sudden sense that you are supported even without knowing how. The more present you become, the more you notice these quiet forms of grace. You begin to understand that alignment with life is not about receiving everything the personality desires. It is about becoming available to the wisdom within each moment. Sometimes life closes a door you were determined to enter. Years later, you may see what that closing protected you from. Sometimes life removes a relationship you thought you could not live without, only for you to discover a self you had abandoned while trying to keep it. Sometimes no explanation arrives. In those moments, trust becomes less about understanding and more about resting in the mystery. Infinity cannot be fully understood by the thinking mind. The mind seeks edges, beginnings, conclusions, and definitions. The soul seems comfortable with mystery because it belongs to the mystery. Yoga, in its deepest sense, is your willingness to remain united with life even when life cannot be explained. It is the breath you take before responding from an old wound. It is the forgiveness you offer when resentment no longer serves you. It is the hand you place over your heart when fear returns. It is the moment you remember that your peace is not waiting somewhere outside you. You are not trying to create a new self. You are letting the false layers fall away. The need to please everyone begins to loosen. The habit of measuring your path against others becomes less convincing. The desire to control every outcome loses some of its power. Beneath these patterns, your natural presence becomes easier to feel. You may discover that your true self is quieter than the ego. It does not need to announce itself. It does not argue for its value. It simply is. Like sunlight entering a room, when the curtains are opened, the soul does not need to be manufactured. It needs only to be allowed. And as you allow it, life may not become perfect, but it becomes more honest. You feel what you feel without becoming imprisoned by it. You love without trying to possess. You act without trying to dominate the future. You forgive without denying your pain. You begin to walk through the world with a softer heart and a steadier center. This is the return, not a dramatic arrival, but 1,000 quiet moments in which you choose awareness over reaction, trust over control, and love over fear. And when these choices become part of your daily life, the truth of who you are is no longer only something you understand, it becomes something you live. Living the truth of who you are does not require a perfect life. It does not mean you will never feel anxious again, never become attached, or never lose your way. It means that when these experiences arise, you remember there is something deeper within you than the passing emotion. You begin to understand that peace is not a reward at the end of life's difficulties. It is a way of meeting life while the difficulties are still present. Some mornings you may wake with a heavy mind. Before reaching for the world, you can remain still for a few moments and notice your breath. You do not need to solve anything. You can simply remember, I am the awareness noticing these thoughts. I am not limited to the thoughts themselves. That small pause can change the quality of your entire day. Stillness does not have to be complicated. It may be 5 quiet minutes before the house wakes. It may be a slow breath while sitting in your car. It may be a walk without your phone, allowing the sky, the trees, and the movement of the air to bring you back into the present. In silence, you may begin to feel what the noise has been covering. At first, that may include discomfort. But beneath the discomfort, there is often a spaciousness that has always been there. Gratitude can also become a gentle path back to the soul. Gratitude is not pretending that everything is easy. It is the willingness to notice what remains sacred even in an imperfect life. You can be grateful for the breath moving through you, for a warm cup held between your hands, for someone who listened, for a lesson you did not want but eventually understood. You can be grateful for another morning without needing to know exactly what the morning will bring. Gratitude shifts the mind from what is missing to what is already present. It reminds you that life is not only happening in the future you are trying to reach, it is here. Awareness can become part of ordinary moments. When you feel yourself reacting, you can pause. When comparison begins, you can return to your own path. When you notice that you are saying yes from fear, you can give yourself time before answering. You may not always choose perfectly. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to become more conscious of the place from which you are choosing. Before speaking, you can ask, will these words bring more separation or more understanding? Before holding on to resentment, you can ask, do I want to carry this energy into another day? Before trying to control what cannot be controlled, you can ask, what would trust look like in this moment? These questions do not demand immediate answers. They open a door. Forgiveness, too, may become a daily practice rather than one final decision. Old pain can return in unexpected ways. A memory may rise and the body may respond as if the past is happening again. When this occurs, you can meet yourself with compassion. You can release the pain again, not because it never mattered, but because your freedom matters now. You may need to forgive the same person more than once. You may need to forgive yourself each time an old regret appears. This does not mean you have failed. It means healing often moves in circles, returning to the same place with a little more awareness each time. Trust can be practiced in the same way. You do not need to trust the whole future. You can trust this breath. You can trust the next honest step. You can trust that you do not have to understand infinity in order to belong to it. The wave does not need to understand the entire ocean. It only needs to recognize that it is made of the ocean. And perhaps this is the quiet wisdom at the center of yoga. You are not separate from the life you are seeking. You are not a broken person trying to earn connection with the source. You are already an expression of that source, learning to release the beliefs that made separation seem real. Your body will change. Your circumstances will change. People will enter and leave. Some plans will unfold, and others will dissolve. Yet the presence within you can remain open, loving, and aware through every season. This does not make you distant from life. It allows you to participate more fully. When you no longer demand that every moment confirm your worth, you can experience the moment as it is. When you stop asking people to complete you, you can love them more freely. When you release the need to control the path, you can notice the beauty beside it. You begin to live less from fear and more from reverence. You see that each person is carrying an invisible story. You become slower to judge and quicker to understand. You recognize that kindness is never wasted, that peace offered in one moment may travel farther than you will ever know. And when you forget, as every human being sometimes does, you can return. Return to the breath. Return to awareness. Return to forgiveness. Return to the love beneath the fear. Return to the quiet center where you do not need to prove, defend, compare, or become. You may realize that the spiritual journey was never about constructing a better identity. It was about becoming still enough to remember the identity that existed before the world gave you labels. You are the soul beneath the story. You are the awareness behind the changing mind. You are a temporary expression of an infinite life, like a wave rising from an endless sea. And when you remember this, even briefly, something softens. The future no longer needs to be controlled so tightly. The past no longer needs to be carried so heavily. This moment becomes enough to meet with presence. May you move gently through your days. May you trust what is unfolding without abandoning your inner truth. May you forgive what has weighed upon your heart. May you recognize love not as something you must search for, but as the essence from which you came. And when the noise of the world becomes loud, may you remember that silence is still within you. You have not lost your true self. You have only been listening to other voices. The peace, wisdom, and love you seek have always been part of you. You are not becoming whole. You are remembering that you were never separate from wholeness. Take a quiet moment and notice what this brings up within you. Share your reflection in the comments and subscribe for more journeys into awareness, healing, and inner peace. Until we meet again, trust the life within you, honor the soul that you are, and remember that the infinite source is not somewhere far away. It is breathing through you now.